guys, welcome back to another video. Today we will be discussing anxiety in school. A lot of young people struggle with anxiety during their educational years, and that's quite normal. It's a stressful time. Some people may deal with it throughout the entirety, and for some it develops later on when things get a bit more stressful, like GCSEs or A-levels, or even university. Now, it's something that personally I struggled with in school, and it made things so much harder. And obviously people deal with anxiety on different levels, so how one person might be anxious in school might be totally different for another person. Something that might be bearable for one may not be bearable for another. And it's important to be mindful of that whatever I talk about today, that it's just from my perspective, right? It's just what I know about myself or what I've seen in others. That's not to mean that it won't be something else entirely. So the first thing I want to talk about that we can hopefully help each other with is what to do when you start to notice that you're anxious. The obvious thing is making excuses to leave class. That's how it started for me anyway, and I didn't really know what was going on at the time, and that's fine. Thankfully there's a lot more support these days, and there's a lot more awareness, so it's easier to gain an understanding of what you might be feeling. So if you feel the need to escape from somewhere, it makes sense that you'd then want to go and make an excuse so that you can leave. And it's tricky because every psychologist or therapist will really say you shouldn't leave, because that's avoidance, and then avoidance enforces that there is a problem, and that's why you get anxious and just spirals into something totally uncontrollable. For me, I don't know, I would say that it's not so bad leaving, but it's how you do it. So if you struggle, or you are struggling in school, then talk to your teachers privately. If you can't do it in that moment, like if you're suddenly overwhelmed and you need to leave, just excuse yourself for a moment and then speak to them after the class. Or if you have to leave suddenly, go and see if you can speak to the head teacher or your head of year. That's the way forward, because when they gain an understanding of what you're going through, they can help you. If you hide it, nobody will be able to help you with it. It will be your burden to carry, and that's not what anybody wants. We're fortunate enough to live in a world where there is a very large support network. There are so many resources that can help. But you have to confront it and be willing to open up to certain people. That's not to say you need to go, like, in the middle of class, oh, I'm really anxious, I need to get out. That's obviously not what you want to do either. But your teachers need to be aware that you might need to leave. And just that in itself, if you have permission to leave, you might suddenly feel not so anxious about needing to get out. Feeling trapped for a lot of people brings anxiety, and that can kind of be a bit like agoraphobia. And, it's the way I dealt with it in class when I didn't really want to tell anybody what was going on. I would plan my escape, right? And that would be my second piece of advice, is to keep in mind that you can leave at any time. Plan which direction out of the class you're going to go, how many steps it will take, how long you need to get out, how the door opens. Having that firmly in my mind that I can get out when I need to, again, reduces anxiety just that little bit. That's not to say that you won't feel anxious, because it depends what's triggering it. So it's not just feeling trapped, it might be the situation you're in, and then being trapped in that situation is what makes it unbearable. So it helps to understand your anxiety a little bit as well. But sometimes that's hard in itself, we don't all have the luxury of going to therapists and speaking to many people about it. But as I said, there are many online resources that can help in understanding more and overcoming it. But this is about how to deal with it in a specific situation, right? So you're in school. Once you speak to the teachers, you can then come up with a kind of action plan. So that's what happened for me. I had to speak to head of sixth form, and then I told them what I could and couldn't do. At the time, I was only experiencing severe anxiety in certain situations and certain classes. Now, I don't know if that's the case for you, but it helps to just be honest about it. And that's where we started. We said, well, actually, you don't need to go to assembly. You don't gain anything from that, so there's no point putting you through that. This class you need to go through, but perhaps we could look at support outside of school, or that you get the worksheets sent home, that kind of thing. Because then, again, it's a burden released, because you have the support network that are aware of your situation and ways to overcome that educational side of it, because you don't want to miss school. Especially the older you get, you don't want to have really bad grades because you're anxious. You don't want to say, I can't do this and this and this because I'm anxious. That's the thing that we don't want. Anxiety shouldn't control our lives to the point that we then just say, well, can't do it, have to give up. No, we keep going, we keep trying, we move forward. And you can only really do that in an educational setting when you speak to a teacher, right? For university, for example, there was a whole system in place to help deal with anxiety. You get a support worker, meaning you have somebody with you in class. You can have a dictaphone so that you can record the class if you need to leave. All of those little things that help, and then they make it easier. So you can concentrate in that moment on practicing staying, but also knowing if you have to leave the situation, that's not going to compromise your education, and that's what you want. The other thing that I found that helped me in school was talking to my friends. Now, you might notice if you struggle with anxiety, especially on a severe level, your friendship group might start to shrink. And that's fine. Not everybody can deal with it. Friends come and go, especially during school. The friends that you'll stay with for longer, they will stick around through it, and they'll be the ones you want to talk to. If you speak to your friends openly about it, it'll help them understand what's going on. What I noticed, for me anyway, is that anxiety makes you act really strange. Right? So people won't know that you're anxious, but they'll see that something's not quite right. That can scare some people, that can confuse others. But if your friends are aware of the situation and your friends go, okay, I know why she's acting like that, they can either try and help you through it or just accept it. And again, a lot of people suffer with anxiety because of a fear of judgment, which is completely normal. Anxiety is fight or flight, and our lives are impacted by certain judgments. When you go and apply for a job, they will make a judgment, and you will get that job or not get it based on that judgment. So it makes sense. However, in school, those judgments are not as important, meaning if somebody doesn't like you because of the way you look, then that is not somebody you want in your life. However, it takes time to train your subconscious that is not a problem. So in the meantime, it's just about doing what you can to ease the pressure. So if you are free to act weirdly in front of your friends, that's what you should do. And then they'll accept it, and then you'll feel less anxious, and you'll be able to overcome things like that. It also helps in that sense of having your personal support network. It's one thing when teachers are supporting you and parents, but it makes the world of difference having your friends that you can talk to. That's not to say you need to have heart-to-heart conversations or therapy-like conversations. I don't think I ever did with any of my friends. But it just meant I could say, you know what, today was really rubbish. You don't want to say that to others because you don't want to worry them, you don't want to burden them. And we shouldn't feel like that, but often we do. And that's, again, it's human nature. But the point is of finding how you can deal with it. So if you have your friends that you can talk to in class, that'll make it easier. But again, that's why you need step 1, which is making sure your teachers know. I got into a lot of trouble for speaking during class because my teachers didn't know what was going on. And I didn't know what was going on. There will be certain staff members, there will be certain people throughout your life that won't understand anxiety. And it's not really our job to educate them. Right, we can tell them how we're feeling, we can explain our problems, but if they think anxiety is nothing serious, that's up to them. As long as they're not stopping you. Right, so it might not be that pleasant to talk to them, but as long as they aren't doing something they shouldn't be. So for example, if a teacher has something against you because you have to keep leaving, as long as they're not marking you down because you're leaving, then in life we won't get on with certain people. That's fine. And the final thing that I could really suggest for dealing with it in school is distractions. For some people, I've seen that like fidget spinners or the little cubes with the switches, that can really help them because it focuses their mind. For me, that never really worked. Focusing on the actual work that needed to be done was what worked for me, because I'd be like, okay, this is the worksheet I need to do. If I do it, then I can leave. And that would be my motivation. So it's just really about finding what works for you. And as time goes on, it gets easier. It just takes time. And don't be disheartened if one day you can stay for the full class and another day you can't stay 5 minutes. Don't push yourself to breaking point, but you need to be able to push yourself enough to challenge yourself and feel good about it. And that's really all I can suggest for school. I hope that it's been helpful. I, again, would recommend sipping water, breathing techniques, progressive muscle relaxation, all the standard stuff. There are many simple exercises like that you can implement in any anxiety-provoking situation. This is specifically about what to do in school, because that is where it can impact you very negatively and your grades can go down and you can quickly end up in a situation where your future is limited because of one moment in time. And that's not what we want. So please remember, talk to your lecturers, teachers, see if you can build that support network for you and that will work for you. And then you go from there. You learn things as you go along. You'll see what helps you and what doesn't. You might see that you feel better if you're first in the class. You might see that you feel better if you're the last person to walk into a room. Little things like that, you'll figure out along the way. It just takes time. But it does get easier as long as you keep working at it. Don't worry too much about avoidance. There's that tricky difference, which maybe I'll go into in another video, that I think there's no point pushing yourself, basically. You know, you can say I'm avoiding it, but actually it might be I just need to give myself a break at this point. So let me know down in the comments your experiences with anxiety in school, or if you've got any questions. Please leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe, and see you next time.